The night did not just fall over the forest. It crashed. It came down like a collapsed sky, cracking open with storm winds that clawed through the trees as if the entire world was being ripped apart. And in the middle of that storm, bleeding, breathless, and shaking so hard her knees nearly buckled, Aria Wynter ran for her life. The forest floor was a chaos of mud, roots, and ice-slick leaves that swallowed her footsteps. Every breath she drew felt like she was dragging knives through her throat. Her body was giving up on her, but her fear refused to let her stop. The storm howled, and the branches overhead shook like wild things trying to break free. Lightning split open the sky, illuminating the forest in sharp white flashes. And in those brief seconds, anyone watching would have seen her clearly. A girl torn apart by pain and betrayal. A girl who had once trusted the people now chasing her. A girl who should have belonged somewhere, but instead was running from the only family she ever knew. Her cloak was shredded. Her palms were torn open. Dried blood streaked across her cheek. But none of that hurt as much as the weight in her chest. Because the storm wasn't the only thing exploding tonight. Her heart was too. She had been rejected. Not gently. Not quietly. Not with soft words or a broken whisper. No, she had been rejected with cruelty. With humiliation. With enough venom to make her question why she had ever been born. And the storm seemed to echo that rejection, ripping leaves from branches, flinging cold rain against her skin like punishment. It felt personal. It felt deliberate. It felt like the world agreed she deserved this. But beneath the fear, beneath the heartbreak, something else trembled inside her. Silver light. Uncontrolled. Unpredictable. Unwanted. Her silver flame, the power she never asked for, pulsed beneath her skin like a living storm of its own. It flickered, fighting her, begging to be released. But she couldn't control it. Not tonight. Not after everything that had happened. And she knew the moment she lost control, the forest would burn. Or she would. Her breathing stuttered. Her chest throbbed. Her legs threatened to collapse beneath her. But she pushed on, crashing through the undergrowth, slipping, sliding, stumbling. As behind her, they were coming. The wolves of Frostfang pack, her old pack, weren't stalking her. They weren't chasing her. They were hunting her. And the worst part? They were enjoying it. Aria's boots sank into the mud, nearly trapping her ankle as she yanked herself free. Her vision blurred for a moment, but she forced herself forward. Branches tore at her skin like the forest itself wanted to mark her escape. The wind slapped her hair across her face, mixing rainwater with the blood dripping down her jaw. Every sound around her was amplified by fear. Every rustle, every snap of a twig, every distant howl. Her pulse thundered in her ears. The wolves of Frostfang were spreading out. Getting closer in a slow, calculated circle. They wanted her afraid. Wanted her exhausted. Wanted her hopeless. And gods, she was close. Her steps grew weaker. Her breath came in gasps. Her heartbeat hammered so loud she felt it shake her bones. But she didn't stop. Not even when her knees buckled for a second. Not even when a flash of silver light sparked at the edge of her fingertips. Not even when the storm overhead cracked with enough force to shatter the air. She kept running because it was the only thing she could do. Because stopping meant letting them take her. And she would rather die out here, cold, alone, terrified, than be dragged back to them. Lightning illuminated her face again, revealing a truth no one else could see. She wasn't running from them. She was running from the version of herself she had been with them. A girl who tolerated insults. A girl who took the blame for things she didn't do. A girl who believed she deserved scraps of affection. But that girl was dying tonight. And the storm was her witness. A branch cracked somewhere behind her. Then came the voices, low, mocking, cruel. Keep running, little spark. Slow down, Aria. We just want to talk. Silver flame or not, you're still pathetic. Her chest tightened. Her breath caught. Her vision blurred from fear and exhaustion. She clung to the nearest tree, nails digging into the wet bark as she forced herself onward. But her legs wobbled with every step. A roar of thunder drowned out their taunts for a moment. But she could still feel them. Their presence pressed against the back of her skull like a threat. She ducked behind a fallen tree, collapsing against the cold bark. Her whole body trembled. Not from the cold. Not from the storm. But from the terror of knowing she was trapped between her past and something far worse. Her heartbeat thudded so loudly she felt it echo in the wood beneath her palms. She tried to shift. Tried to summon the wolf inside her. But her silver flame trembled violently, fighting her, lashing out against her attempts to control it. Another spark of silver light flashed across her skin. Pain tore through her like a blade. Her vision darkened. No, not now, please, she whispered through clenched teeth. The power twisted, searing through her veins, and she bit down on her lips so hard she tasted blood. She curled into herself, shaking uncontrollably. Her wolf was silent, frightened, hiding from the unpredictable flame burning inside her. And Aria was alone. So alone it hurt to breathe. A howl tore through the storm. Sharp, triumphant, close. They had her scent. They had her fear. Claw marks scraped across a stone nearby. She jerked upright, heart slamming painfully against her ribs. They weren't far anymore. Maybe 20 yards. Maybe less. Panic surged up her throat like bile, choking her, making her dizzy. She stumbled backward, slipping down a slope she didn't see coming. Her foot crashed through loose dirt. Her hands clawed desperately at roots and vines. But there was nothing strong enough to hold her weight. She dropped into a ravine, landing hard on her side. Pain exploded across her ribs. A cry tore from her lips, raw, unguarded, terrified. Rainwater rushed down the ravine walls. Lightning lit up the world again, revealing the mud-streaked fear in her eyes. For a moment, she couldn't move, couldn't breathe. She lay there, soaked, shaking, staring at the storm-filled sky like it might swallow her whole. Her wolf whimpered inside her chest. She tried to stand, but her leg buckled. She grabbed the ravine wall, fingers sinking into mud, pulling herself up inch by inch. The storm seemed to scream at her to keep moving. But her body was giving up. Bit by bit. Breath by breath. She let out a shaky gasp. And then, a twig snapped. Not above. Not behind. But right at the top of the ravine. She froze. Her blood turned cold. Someone was standing there. But the presence wasn't familiar. The scent wasn't Frostfang. The aura wasn't cruel or mocking. This was something else. Someone else. And even through her terror, even through her shivering panic, she felt it. A pull. A shift in the air. A silent force that didn't belong to any wolf she had ever known. She looked up with wide, trembling eyes. And saw a silhouette step toward the edge. The storm faded for a moment. Her breathing stalled. And the narrator's voice drops to a deep, gripping whisper. If this already has your heart racing, then you need to subscribe to Anne's romance collections. Because stories like this don't let go. A slow exhale. A faint crunch of gravel. Then, a figure descends the ravine wall. Silent. Controlled. Powerful. And Aria Wynter realizes in one terrifying breath. This is not one of her hunters. This is something far more dangerous. A low growl rolled through the trees, deeper than thunder, steady as a heartbeat. Aria froze. The sound didn't belong to the Frostfang wolves. This one vibrated through the ground, through her bones, through something older and wilder buried beneath her ribs. She lifted her head, blinking rain and exhaustion away, and saw it. A silhouette, massive, motionless, stood between her and the darkness where her pursuers waited. Broad shoulders. Thick fur the color of forged silver. A stance that promised violence with the ease of breathing. This was no ordinary alpha. It was a giant. A legend. A creature whispered about in stories of war and moonlight. Kaelan Voss. Alpha of the Nightfall Dominion. And he was staring at her. Not the forest. Not the enemy. Her. Lightning spilled across the sky, lighting the shape of him fully, towering, brutal, and impossibly still like a storm learning patience. Water streaked down his fur, making it gleam like liquid steel. His claws flexed once, sinking into the earth as though the ground bowed beneath him. Aria's breath hitched. The Frostfang wolves froze too. Even they knew better than to challenge a Nightfall alpha, especially this one. The air tightened between them all, thick with shock and instinct and something else. Something she couldn't name but felt like the moment before a flame catches. Her heartbeat thudded painfully. She didn't know if she feared him, or the part of her that reacted to him. Because something inside her recognized him. And that terrified her almost as much as being hunted. His wolf shape shifted, not fully, just enough to lift his head and look directly into her eyes. Silver met storm gray and her stomach twisted. There was no way he could know her. She was nobody. A runaway. A mistake in her old pack's eyes. Yet his voice, deep, ragged, ancient, cut through the rain like a blade. Aria Wynter. Her blood ran cold. No one outside Frostfang should know her name. No, she whispered, stumbling back instinctively. Her heel slid against wet stone. How do you? He didn't answer. His chest rumbled with a sound between a growl and a warning. Not aimed at her, but at the wolves lurking behind her. The Frostfang hunters hesitated, their confidence faltering. Fear slid across their faces as Kaelan shifted more. Fur retracting, bones cracking, form rising. A beam of lightning illuminated him as he straightened, half-shifted, towering above every creature in the clearing. He looked like a god made of fury. And she couldn't decide if she should run or fall to her knees. Her pulse thrashed. Her breath came shallow. Her power, her unstable silver flame, lurched beneath her skin, flickering in response to his presence, as though recognizing something she wasn't ready to face. Kaelan's voice dropped lower, quieter, yet somehow even more dangerous. You should not have been left alone in this storm. She didn't know if it was a judgment, a question, a promise, but she felt the weight of it settle over her like a second skin. The Frostfang wolves made the mistake of moving. It happened in a blur, claws scraping, mud exploding under heavy paws, teeth flashing. Kaelan launched forward like he'd been waiting for any excuse to unleash himself. Aria watched, helpless and breathless, as he tore through her pursuers. Not with cruelty, no. With precision. With intent. With the controlled fury of someone who knew exactly which bones to break and which lives to spare. He moved like the storm answered to him. Like the rain bent around his strikes. Within seconds the first wolf hit the ground, gasping. Another tried to flee, only to be caught by Kaelan's crushing grip. A third tried to shift mid-air. Kaelan slammed him into a tree trunk before the bones could rearrange. Aria flinched at the sound, wet, final, unavoidable. Then silence. Except for the rain. Except for her pulse hammering in her ears. Except for the low, steady breathing of the giant werewolf who had just saved her life as if it cost him nothing. Kaelan stood in the clearing, chest rising and falling, silver fur streaked with rain and blood that wasn't his. Then he turned to her. Fully. As though worried she would bolt. As though he was the dangerous one now. Aria's legs trembled uncontrollably. Her vision blurred around the edges. Her entire body screamed at her to run, yet she couldn't force herself to move. Not when his eyes locked onto hers with that strange mixture of calculation and something else she couldn't decipher. Something softer. Something reluctant. Something like recognition. His steps were deliberate, heavy, each one sending a faint tremor through the soaked earth. His form shimmered, shifting the rest of the way into his humanoid shape. Tall, broad, drenched in rain, bare skin marked with scars that told their own brutal story. Scarred shoulders. A jagged mark along his ribs. A faint glowing line at his throat, like a bond that had once tried to form, and failed. Aria swallowed hard. He stopped a few feet from her, close enough that she could see the droplets sliding down the thick strands of his silver hair. Close enough that she could finally breathe again. And then not breathe at all. His voice was smoother now, though still edged with gravel and restraint. You're hurt. It wasn't a question. Her throat tightened. I'm fine. He tilted his head, studying her like she was a riddle he'd waited years to solve. You're lying. Heat crawled up her neck, equal parts fear and indignation. But she couldn't find the strength to argue. Her instinct snapped back into place, sudden and wild. She took a step back, shaking. Another. Then another. I don't need your help, she whispered. He didn't react. He didn't argue. He simply watched her retreat, eyes unreadable, shoulders still heaving from the fight. But when the ground tilted beneath her feet, when the black spots invaded her vision, when her knees buckled, Kaelan moved faster than instinct. His arms caught her before she hit the mud, warm and solid and far gentler than she expected from a creature who'd crushed her hunters like twigs moments earlier. Her palms pressed weakly against his chest, but she couldn't push him away. Her body refused to cooperate. Pain pulsed through her ribs. Her ankle throbbed. Her power flickered violently, too unstable to control. Let go, she breathed. I won't, he murmured, voice low and steady. Not while you're falling. She trembled in his hold, whether from fear, exhaustion, or the startling warmth she felt in the presence of this monstrous alpha, she didn't know. The world blurred again. Rain softened. His heartbeat was the last sound she registered before darkness swept over her. Slow, warm, steady. A rhythm that didn't feel like danger at all. Aria drifted in and out of consciousness the way a candle fights to stay lit after being smothered. Warmth pressed against her. Unexpected, steady, impossibly comforting. The rough rhythm beneath her cheek wasn't earth. It was a heartbeat. Slow. Measured. More patient than anything in her life had ever been. She didn't open her eyes yet. She didn't need to. She knew she was being carried. Through rain. Through cold. through a night that wanted her dead. Kaelan's steps were deliberate, each one sinking slightly into sodden earth. She could feel the muscles beneath his grip shifting, the quiet strength of a creature built to endure storms without bending. A soft groan escaped her before she could stop it. "You're awake." His voice vibrated through his chest and into her bones, deep enough to anchor her, unfamiliar enough to send a shiver up her spine. Aria tensed. Instinct told her to pull away, to fight, to flee again even if her body couldn't stand on its own. She didn't move. Her memories did. And they crashed into her all at once. She saw a clearing, not this one but one burned into her mind. A circle of wolves. Their faces twisted with something uglier than hate, disappointment, disgust, fear. The Frostfang pack. Her pack once. Before everything broke. A younger version of herself stood shivering, mud on her knees, clothes torn after the first pain of a half-shift that never completed. She remembered the cold breath of the wind. The cold stares from every direction. The cold silence right before the verdict. Cursed. Defective. Wrong. Their words fell like stones. Her throat closed at the memory. She had been 16, too young to understand power, too desperate to belong, too terrified to speak. Her hands had trembled. Her voice had cracked when she tried to deny it. But they didn't listen. They never did. The humiliation carved itself into her skin long before she learned how to hide it. The next memory hit harder, the moment everything shattered. She had been training in the lower woods, clawing desperately at her own potential, begging her wolf to rise. Instead, something else rose. A heat erupted beneath her ribs, silver, bright, wild. It cracked through her bones like lightning, bursting out of her palms in a blaze that scorched bark and left the air humming. She had fallen backward, gasping, terrified of herself. The elders saw. And their fear was instant, sharp, and merciless. Silver flame. She carries the mark. She will bring ruin. Contain her. Before she destroys us all. She remembered their hands grabbing her arms. Their claws. Their shouts. The way the world tilted when she realized they weren't training her. They were restraining her. She remembered her breath catching in her throat. Her knees giving out. Her father stepping forward. Her father. The Alpha's right hand, the one who taught her never to show fear. Turning away. Not a word. Not a touch. Not even a flicker of recognition. Just a clean, brutal abandonment. As if she were already dead. The memory made her chest burn now, decades older but still carrying the wound like fresh bruises. She remembered the whispers that followed her for years. She might trigger the prophecy. She could burn the forest. Her wolf is corrupted. She's wrong. A mistake in the moon's design. She became a ghost among those who once called her sister. A threat among those who once called her pack. A burden among those who once called her daughter. The rejection was so deep, so total, that sometimes she wondered if she had imagined the warmth she once knew. If she had imagined ever being loved at all. The worst part, she believed them. For years she believed them. The memory dissolved, dragged away by Kaelan's steady breathing. His scent, pine, cold metal, rain-soaked fur, pulled her back to the present. Her limbs ached. Her ribs throbbed. Her jaw clenched against the tears threatening to spill. She swallowed, voice barely a rasp. "Put me down." Kaelan didn't stop walking. "You're injured." "I can walk." "That's a lie." "Let me go." "You'd collapse." His tone wasn't arrogant. It wasn't commanding. It was factual. It infuriated her. The night deepened as he carried her toward a small overhang of rock, shelter from the worst of the storm. The rain softened there, becoming a whisper instead of a threat. Kaelan set her down slowly, as if she were fragile glass he wasn't allowed to break. As soon as her feet touched the ground, she pushed herself back, spine hitting the stone wall behind her. Her breaths came fast, uneven. He crouched in front of her, not looming, not dominating. Just close enough for her to see the faint glow pulsing beneath his skin. Nightfall alphas always carried shadows. But she carried fire. Dangerous fire. The kind not seen in centuries. Aria wrapped her arms around herself, trying to hide the trembling. "You shouldn't have helped me," she whispered. "You don't know what I am." Kaelan studied her with a stillness that felt heavier than any storm. His silver eyes narrowed slightly, not in judgment, but in thought. "I know exactly what you are," he said. Her heart stopped. "No, you can't." He leaned in, voice dropping lower. "Silver flame doesn't lie." Everything inside her recoiled. Her power flared at those words, a sharp spark that shot up her spine and lit the edges of her vision. Silver shimmered briefly beneath her skin, so faint she almost convinced herself he didn't see it. But he did. Of course he did. She bit her lip hard enough to taste blood. "That power is forbidden for a reason," she said, forcing each word out. "It destroys everything it touches." "Does it?" "Yes." "Says who?" "Pi Pack." The moment she said it, something bitter twisted inside her. Kaelan's jaw ticked. "The pack that hunted you through a storm?" Her breathing stuttered, but she didn't answer. He didn't need to. Silence settled between them, thick with truth she didn't want to face. The rain outside softened into a gentle drizzle, tapping against the rocks like an impatient heartbeat. Aria didn't look at Kaelan. She stared at the ground, at her muddied hands, at the faint tremble she couldn't control. Her voice broke when she finally spoke. "They were right to fear me." Kaelan's gaze sharpened. "No one is born to be feared. You don't understand." "Then explain." Her chest tightened painfully, but the memories demanded to be spoken. "I couldn't control the silver flame," she whispered. "Every time it surfaced, something got hurt. A tree. A wall. A wolf too close to me. I ruined everything. Everyone avoided me. I was a danger even in my sleep." Her throat closed around the next words, but she forced them out anyway. "I was unwanted. My whole life. Even before the power showed." The confession hit the air like a wound splitting open. Kaelan didn't speak. Didn't shift. Didn't try to correct her. He simply listened. And it was that quiet, steady, patient, that undid her more than anything else. Her fingers dug into her arms. "You should stay away from me," she breathed. "Everyone else did. For good reason." His answer was slow, unhurried, certain. "That's because they were afraid of what they didn't understand." Her head snapped up, eyes widening, not at his words but at the way he looked at her. Not like she was a curse. Not like she was a weapon. Not like she was an omen of destruction. He looked at her as though she were something rare. Something worth studying. Something undeniably alive. He spoke again, quieter this time, almost reverently. "I see what they missed." Her pulse stuttered. "What?" she whispered. He leaned in, not touching her, not trapping her, just close enough for his breath to warm the cold shadows between them. "Strength," he murmured. "Fear. Fire. Pain. All woven into one. You survived them. That alone makes you extraordinary." His words sank into her like warmth reaching a frozen core she thought would never thaw. But the fear inside her was stubborn. "And if the power gets loose again?" Kaelan's eyes softened in a way she never expected from a monster of his size. "Then we control it," he said simply. "We." "Yes. We." Her heart clenched painfully. For the first time in her life, someone wasn't stepping away from her. Someone wasn't afraid of her power. Someone wasn't looking through her or past her or around her. Kaelan Voss looked at her. Like she was not a mistake. Like she was not cursed. Like she was not alone. The storm had passed, or at least, its fury had bent into a low, mournful drizzle. The air was still heavy, clinging to the soaked branches, seeping into the earth, and lingering against Aria's skin like a whispered secret she was not yet ready to understand. Kaelan's grip on her arm was firm but gentle as he guided her through the dense forest. Every step he took seemed deliberate, as if the ground itself bent beneath him, aware of the weight of destiny following in his wake. Aria stumbled occasionally, not from exhaustion alone, but because the forest had shifted since her last visit, carrying an aura older than memory. And the myth of the prophecy began to breathe its first living breath once more. The night had just begun to settle around Moonspire Grove, the mist curling like a living thing when it happened. A sound, unnatural and sharp, split the quiet, a low, guttural growl multiplied a dozen times over, followed by the scraping of claws across stone and soil. The shadows themselves seemed to writhe. Aria froze, instinct screaming. Kaelan tensed beside her, his muscles coiling like a predator about to spring. His silver eyes scanned the darkness, narrowing as the first shapes emerged from the mist. Figures too dark to be wolves, too large to be human, moving with a predatory grace that made the air itself shiver. Shadow beasts. Sent by Lord Draven Morkant, the rogue alpha whose ambition had left a trail of blood and terror across every border Kaelan had sworn to protect. They came for her, yes, but not only for her. The Nightfall Dominion itself would pay for the insult of harboring her, the girl with the forbidden silver flame. Aria's pulse slammed in her ears. She wanted to run, wanted to hide, wanted to disappear into the shadows. But Kaelan's hand on her arm stopped her. Strong. Unyielding. Proactive. Stay close, he commanded, voice low, gravel rough with urgency. Do not. The rest of the words were drowned by the chaos. The shadow beast struck. They moved like liquid, converging on the grove with terrifying coordination. Their claws tore through stone and earth, their eyes burning with the malevolence of 100 whispered curses. Kaelan shifted instantly, silver fur bristling, fangs bared, his roar a weapon in itself that sent the beasts scattering for just a heartbeat. Nightfall warriors scrambled. Aria watched, heart in her throat, as Kaelan leapt into the fray. He was terrifying and beautiful all at once. The way he moved, the sheer power in every strike, the precision that made it clear nothing escaped his attention. Blood splattered, rain mixed with dust and soil, and the air smelled of ozone and iron. Aria's fingers tingled. Her silver flame stirred uncontrollably, reacting to the violence around her. It pulsed beneath her skin like a living thing. The raw energy of it made her want to scream, made her want to run, made her want to vanish before she burned everything in sight. But Kaelan's eyes found hers across the fray, silver light reflecting silver light. Control it, he said, voice carrying through the chaos. Not a suggestion. A command. A tether. He swallowed and tried. Tried to calm it. Tried to harness the fire trembling beneath her ribs. But the shadow beasts smelled her fear. They sensed her power. And they didn't hesitate. One of them lunged at her. Faster than she could blink. Her body screamed. She panicked. The silver flame flared, just a spark, but enough to send the creature reeling back with a scream that clawed at the night. Kaelan was there in an instant, ripping the creature apart with a force that made the trees shudder. Aria flinched at the violence, at the inevitability of it. She wanted to look away. She couldn't. She was a part of this storm now, whether she liked it or not. Hours later, the chaos had subsided, or at least ebbed into tense murmurs. The grove was scarred, claw marks on the stone spires, the mist heavier now, clinging to every surface like a silent accusation. Aria stood in the center of the sacred ritual site, trembling, drained, mud and rain dripping from her hair and clothes. Kaelan hovered beside her, but even his presence could not shield her from the stares. The elders of Nightfall had arrived, summoned in urgency, and their eyes were sharp, cold, and calculating. They looked at her not as a survivor of battle, not as a girl who had just faced near-certain death, but as a threat. You should not have been here, one hissed, voice trembling with fear, though his fangs gleamed in the moonlight. The silver flame is forbidden. You endanger us all. Aria's hands curled into fists at her sides. I did not choose this power, she said. I only defend myself as you would have done. Defend yourself? Another elder spat, venom in every word. You are a child of fire. One wrong flare in this grove, this pack, everything you touch will burn. Kaelan's jaw tightened. He stepped between them and her. His voice was low, commanding, a steel-edged rumble. She saved lives tonight. She fought alongside you. And yet you accuse her. The elders recoiled slightly, but their fear was stronger than reason. Aria could feel it like a weight pressing against her chest. Their fear was not just for themselves. It was fear of her, fear of what she could become. The same fear that had haunted her entire life, that had left scars no healing could erase. She wanted to scream, to cry, to turn and walk away and never look back. And part of her did. Kaelan's hand found hers, gripping gently. Stay, he said. His eyes, silver and fierce, searched hers. Do not leave me in the dark. Her chest tightened. Her mind reeled with memories. The rejection, the exile, the fear that had followed her for years. He could not bear it. Not tonight. Not in this place where even the grove itself seemed to whisper judgment. I can't, she whispered. Tears mingled with rain on her cheeks. You don't understand. They'll never accept me. I'm dangerous. I'm unwanted. Kaelan's lips parted, but he didn't interrupt. He only held her gaze, steady, unwavering, refusing to let her look away. His hand remained on hers, a tether she could have held onto, but the weight of the elders, the fire inside her, the storm of emotions, it was too much. "I have to go," she said, voice breaking, her body trembling. "I can't stay here. Not tonight. Not like this." Kaelan's chest tightened. Anger, frustration, helplessness, he felt it all, but he did not stop her. Because he knew the moment demanded choice, and hers was to flee as it had always been. "Then go," he said quietly, voice nearly breaking under the restraint. "But do not forget, you are stronger than you believe. And one day you will see it too." She pulled away, stumbling into the darkness, her silver flame flickering beneath her skin in erratic, chaotic bursts. Each step felt like a betrayal and a release all at once. The grove receded behind her, the elders' voices fading into whispers, Kaelan's presence lingering only as a memory pressed against her chest. Alone, shattered, trembling, but alive. And as the mist swallowed her form, the wind carried the distant echo of Kaelan's words. "Do not forget. The fire is yours, Aria Wynter. Always." Somewhere in the shadows of Moonspire Grove, destiny waited. And it was not done with her yet. The night had settled into a fragile quiet, as if the forest itself were holding its breath after the chaos of Moonspire Grove. The mist lingered low, curling around tree trunks, caressing the uneven ground with gentle, damp fingers. The storm had passed, but the echo of violence remained. The taste of iron, the scent of fear, and the lingering hum of energy from Aria's silver flame. Kaelan moved silently through the underbrush, following the faint trail she had left, instinct and wolf sense guiding him with unerring precision. Each step brought him closer to her, each heartbeat a tether that pulled him forward with a gravity he could not resist. And when he finally found her, she was huddled beneath a rocky outcropping, her knees drawn to her chest, her breath shallow and uneven, trembling as if the very air around her had turned to ice. "Aria." His voice was low, careful, carrying only enough force to anchor her without frightening her. "It's me." She flinched at first, expecting another shadow, another predator, but something in the timbre of his voice, the patience, the steadiness, the weight of him, pulled her gaze toward him. The moonlight caught his silver fur, highlighting the tense lines of his muscles, the strength coiled in his frame, but it was his eyes that held her. Soft, unwavering, yet impossibly alive with emotion. I thought you'd leave," she whispered, voice cracking like dry branches underfoot. "Like everyone else." "I'm not everyone else," he replied, kneeling slowly in the shallow glow of firelight that he coaxed from flint and tinder. The small flame flickered and danced, throwing warmth across the cave's walls, illuminating her face with shadows that softened the fear and hardened the resolve she carried. "I'm here. And I won't leave." The firelight caught her hands as she wrapped them around herself, trembling. The cold of the night seemed to melt into the flickering glow, and for the first time since fleeing the elder's judgment, she felt the smallest fragment of safety. "Why?" she asked, almost inaudibly, voice breaking under the weight of disbelief. "Why do you stay?" Kaelan's gaze softened, and he spoke without hesitation, words heavy with honesty and vulnerability. "Because I've seen what fear looks like. Not the fear of enemies. Not the fear of failure. But the fear that eats at your soul when no one sees you. I've been that afraid. I've been hunted by shadows I couldn't fight alone. I know what it's like to be shattered, to be broken, to feel unwanted. And I can't turn away from that in you." Aria's breath caught in her throat. She wanted to look away, to hide her scars, to pretend the past did not define her, but something in his words anchored her. She could feel the weight of his gaze on her, gentle yet insistent, refusing to let her vanish into herself. She hesitated, then spoke, voice barely above a whisper. "The silver flame, it almost destroyed my life. My family, my pack, everyone I loved. I nearly lost them because of it. Because of me." Kaelan reached out slowly, letting his hand hover above hers without touching, giving her space yet offering the promise of connection. "It didn't destroy you," he said. "It's part of you. And the strength it gives you, the fire, it's extraordinary. But I understand why you fear it. I do. I've carried burdens too, secrets too heavy to share. Failures I've never admitted. Fears that keep me awake at night. I know the cost of power, of mistakes, of being hunted by what others cannot comprehend. The cave seemed to shrink around them, the world outside fading until there was only this fragile cocoon of warmth and honesty. Aria's hands relaxed slightly, resting on her knees, but her gaze never left his. Something unspoken passed between them, a recognition of shared scars, a mutual understanding that neither had come to this moment unbroken, yet both were still standing. "You've been hurt," she whispered. "And yet you saved me. Even when the elders, even when the shadows." Her words faltered, swallowed by emotion she had tried to bury. "Yes," he admitted. "I've been hurt. Betrayed. Failed. And still I see something in you that I couldn't ignore. I won't ignore. You are not a danger to me, Aria. You are something else entirely." Her chest tightened, a fluttering warmth spreading beneath her ribs, and for the first time in years, she dared to allow herself to feel more than fear. She dared to feel trust. But trust was a fragile thing, delicate as the flickering flame before them, and she held it cautiously, afraid to shatter it with a single misstep. Kaelan leaned closer, a deliberate, careful motion that sent a tremor through the cave. Their faces hovered inches apart, breaths mingling, hearts hammering in parallel rhythm. The firelight reflected in her eyes, silver flames mirrored in the depths of her gaze, and for a moment, the storm of the outside world ceased to exist. The almost kiss was electric. Every nerve in her body hummed with tension, every unspoken word suspended in the space between them. The warmth of his breath against her cheek, the subtle brush of fur against her skin, the pull of something undeniable, all converged in a moment that felt like it could shatter or heal. And then a cold draft whispered through the cave, brushing across her neck like a warning. The spell of intimacy shattered. Aria shivered violently, pulling slightly back, eyes wide, chest heaving. Kaelan paused, hands still suspended in the air, a mixture of frustration and understanding etched across his face. "They're still out there," he said softly. "The shadows, the hunters, the ones who would see you destroyed. We can't forget that." "Not yet." Aria nodded, biting her lip to fight back the tremor that wasn't entirely caused by cold. The firelight flickered, shadows dancing across the walls, mirroring the conflict raging inside her. Desire, fear, hope, doubt. Every emotion collided in a storm she had learned to hide behind stoic control. Kaelan's hand finally rested lightly on hers. Not possessive, not commanding, just steady, reassuring, grounding. "But we have this moment," he murmured. "And that counts for something. Trust me, Aria. Trust that I see you, all of you, and that you are not alone." Her throat tightened. She wanted to believe him. She wanted to reach across the chasm of years spent running, hiding, and fearing rejection. But fear still clawed at her. Fear that the world would not accept her, that the fire inside her would consume everything she touched, that leaving Kaelan even for a moment might shatter the fragile thread of connection they were weaving. She began, voice trembling. "I want to, but..." Kaelan leaned closer again, only to pause as the cave's entrance rattled faintly. A distant sound, the crunch of branches underfoot, the subtle echo of movement beyond the shelter, reminded them both that danger was never far, that the outside world waited to tear apart any fragile piece. The almost kiss lingered in the air between them, unresolved, a promise unfinished. The fire crackled in the small hearth, reflecting the turmoil in her heart. Every heartbeat thrummed with tension, every breath loaded with unspoken longing and restrained desire. Aria pulled her gaze from Kaelan's, looking into the flickering shadows, knowing that the world demanded caution, that destiny demanded vigilance, yet feeling deep down that the bond forming between them was unbreakable. "Stay," Kaelan whispered, almost a plea, almost a command. "Not just for tonight. Stay with me through whatever comes." She nodded slowly, swallowing her fear, letting a small fraction of trust settle in her chest. Not complete. Not whole. But enough. Enough to breathe. Enough to survive. Enough to almost believe that she could belong somewhere, that she could be seen, that she could be wanted. And in that fragile, trembling connection, with firelight dancing across their faces, the night stretched endlessly around them. Still dangerous, still uncertain, yet suffused with the warmth of two broken souls finding resonance in each other. The shadows beyond the cave remained, patient and unrelenting, but inside, for one long suspended moment, The world shrank to the fire, to the silence, and to the fragile, unspoken promise hovering in the air. They were not alone. The council chamber was heavy with the scent of damp stone, sweat, and old authority. Torches flickered along the walls, their light dancing over the carved symbols of Nightfall history, a lineage meant to honor power and wisdom. But tonight, every shadow seemed to mock it. Aria stood at the center, shoulders tense, hands trembling. The weight of everything she had endured pressed down on her chest. She could feel Kaelan behind her, unwavering, protective, but even his presence could not shield her from the storm brewing within these walls. The traitor stepped forward, a wolf from within the Nightfall Dominion whose face Aria had once trusted. His eyes glinted with malice, his voice calm, practiced like a knife sliding effortlessly between ribs. "You call this a prophecy?" he sneered, turning to the council, gesturing toward her. "This girl, the one with the silver flame. It is not a blessing. It is a weapon. A danger. Draven Morkant would see her unleashed upon us, and you would welcome it? You would allow your own people to die." The chamber erupted in murmurs. Confusion. Fear. Every head turned to Aria. Every pair of eyes weighed her, measured her, and found her wanting. Her chest tightened. The walls seemed to close in. The torches flickered, shadows elongating, twisting, mocking. She could feel the silver flame beneath her skin, trembling, hungry, as if sensing the injustice being spoken aloud. "Lies," she whispered, voice barely audible, trembling with rage and disbelief. "It's all lies." But her words were drowned by the rising chorus of accusation. The council elders rose, their expressions hard, unyielding. Their fangs gleamed, eyes narrowing. Fear laced every movement, every word. "We warned you," one elder hissed. "We tolerated your presence. We endured your uncontrolled power. And now this confirms it. You are a threat. Not a savior. Not a protector. You are Draven's tool." The accusation struck her like a physical blow. Aria felt her knees weaken, the blood in her ears roaring louder than her heartbeat. Every betrayal she had suffered, every rejection, every exile, the years of running, of hiding, condensed into a single unbearable moment. Kaelan stepped forward, towering and radiant with fury, but even his strength could not halt the council's words. His eyes, silver and storm-dark, met hers across the chamber. His silent plea trembled in the air. "Hold fast. Hold fast. You are not alone." The silver flame responded to her turmoil. It flared beneath her skin, not a flicker but a storm, coiling around her soul, tasting the air with fire. Her hair lifted, her claws tingled with energy, and the chamber grew hotter, the shadows recoiling as though afraid to touch her. She could feel it building, a wave of raw, unfiltered power that had been restrained for too long. Her lineage, her fire, her forbidden gift demanding recognition. "You dare accuse me?" she shouted, voice cracking but strong, echoing through the stone chamber. "You dare twist my life, my blood, my existence into a weapon of fear?" The elders recoiled slightly as if the words alone carried weight. The traitor froze, pale, suddenly aware of the storm he had invoked. Aria's eyes blazed silver. Her silver flame erupted from within, coiling around her like serpents of light. The floor beneath her trembled. Torches flickered violently, their flames bending away from the raw, radiant force of her power. The chamber walls quivered. Dust fell from the ceiling. Every heartbeat, every breath, every ounce of betrayal she had endured exploded into one uncontrollable, magnificent flare. The silver flame shot skyward, cracking the roof above in jagged lines of brilliant light. It lit the night outside as though the sun itself had descended into the chamber. The council shrieked, stumbling back, shielding their eyes. Even Kaelan's jaw clenched, torn between awe and fear, powerless to stop the cataclysm of energy surging from her. Lightning arced through the sky outside, matching the rhythm of her pulse. The air itself seemed to split, vibrating with the intensity of her anger, her hurt, her defiance. Every shadow beast, every enemy, every whisper of betrayal felt the raw weight of her power, a reminder that she was not weak, not fragile, not a pawn. She was a force of nature, a storm incarnate. And in that instant the prophecy could no longer be twisted, denied, or feared. The sky above split with light, the council faltered, and the world, at least the part contained in that chamber, had no choice but to witness her truth. Kaelan stepped closer, voice a low growl of fierce devotion. Aria, you are not alone. Do not let them break you. You are stronger than they can ever comprehend. Her eyes met his, silver flames reflected in his own. And for the first time she felt something shift. Not just power but control, recognition, and an unspoken understanding. The betrayal had come. The accusations had come. But she was not defeated. Not now. Not ever. The silver flame coiled higher, illuminating the chamber, illuminating her, illuminating the undeniable truth. She was not a weapon. She was not a curse. She was herself. And the world would know it. The night sky above Moonspire Grove was ripped with shadow and fire. Clouds churned like boiling ink, lightning tearing jagged paths across the heavens. From the distant ridge, a shape moved with lethal precision. Lord Draven Morkant, dark as a storm, flanked by his twisted shadow beasts, every step a promise of death. The air itself seemed to shrink under the weight of his malice. Aria's heart thudded, but she did not tremble. Not now. Not ever. She had fled, she had suffered, she had been denounced, betrayed, and hunted. But tonight she was returning, not as a frightened girl, not as a weapon feared, but as a force that demanded recognition. The silver flame pulsed beneath her skin, no longer a flicker of chaotic fear, but a roaring fire of purpose, strength, and defiance. Kaelan was beside her, every muscle coiled, every sense alert. His silver eyes tracked Draven's approach, calculating, fierce, protective. "Stay with me," he said, voice low, but she did not need the warning. She was already moving, already embracing what she had hidden, feared, and denied for too long. The ground trembled under her first step. Her claws dug into the soil, small cracks spiderwebbing outward as the silver flame leapt into action. The mist of Moonspire Grove twisted around her, drawn by her power, alive with anticipation. It whispered her name, caressed her skin, and promised vengeance. Draven stopped at the edge of the grove, his dark form towering, eyes alight with hatred and disbelief. "So," he hissed, voice cutting through the storm, "the child of flame returns. Ready to burn everything in her path?" Aria lifted her chin, letting the fire within her swell. The silver flame surged through her, answering her own defiance. It wound around her like a living serpent, licking the night with silver light that scorched shadows and peeled away the darkness. Every step forward shook the earth beneath her. Roots twisted, stones split, and the trees leaned away as if bowing to her awakening power. "I am not your weapon," she shouted, her voice carried by the wind, echoing across the forest. "I am not your sacrifice. I am myself. And no one, will tell me otherwise." Kaelan's presence was a tether, grounding her in the maelstrom of raw energy. Together they were an impossible force, predator and fire, wolf and flame, entwined in the storm of fate. He did not speak, but his hand brushed against hers, and the connection sent shivers through both of them, a silent acknowledgement that they would face this together. The silver flame erupted fully now, spiraling outward in a halo of blinding silver light. The forest itself responded. The ground shivered, trembling in pulses that echoed like the heartbeat of the world. Vines lifted, leaves quivered, and the ancient stones of Moonspire Grove glowed with the memory of long-forgotten spirits. Ancestors, guardians of power, awoke at last, sensing her claim, recognizing her as the rightful bearer of the fire. Draven advanced, claws and shadow writhing at his side. He lashed with dark energy, a storm of black lightning and venomous intent. Each strike met Aria's silver flame with a violent clash, sparks of energy exploding into the night. The forest quaked with each impact, the trees groaning under the pressure, their roots shaking the earth like colossal drums of war. Her power was no longer hesitant, no longer trembling. Every pulse of flame was a declaration, every breath a roar. The silver flame wrapped around her form, reshaping her. Her eyes glowed like twin moons, her silver fur glimmered with ethereal light, and her body stretched, muscles coiling with supernatural grace and strength. She had become more than a girl. She was a beacon, a living storm, a guardian of the prophecy. Draven's face twisted in fury and disbelief. "Impossible," he growled. "You should be my pawn. My weapon. You are nothing to me," she cut him off, voice ringing with authority, unflinching. "Nothing. And tonight I take back everything you sought to control." Energy surged outward from her, a wave of silver flame that lit the grove, banished shadows and scorched the air. Kaelan's roar joined hers, a chorus of defiance and power that made even the oldest stones tremble. Together they formed a wall of living light and fury that could not be pierced. Draven lunged, claws lashing, darkness spiraling. Aria met him, silver flame and shadow colliding in a violent burst. Sparks flew, lightning arcs danced across the sky, and the wind screamed like 1,000 voices. Every heartbeat resonated with danger. Every pulse of magic a test of endurance, skill and will. The battle was not only physical. Aria's mind stretched to its limits, controlling, channeling, directing her power with precision. She drew on every memory of fear and rejection, every betrayal, every moment she had been told she was less than, and she turned it into strength. The silver flame responded, feeding her clarity, fueling her courage. Draven staggered under the force, the darkness around him flaring, unraveling, twisting into powerless tendrils that scattered under her light. Aria's roar echoed like thunder, shaking the forest. She could feel the spirits of Moonspire Grove rallying to her cause. The whisper of leaves, the creak of branches, the hum of energy in the stones themselves. And then the final standoff. Aria's eyes blazed, silver flame coiling around her in a living aura, breathing, pulsing, thrumming with raw power. Draven faced her, his form dark, corrupted by ambition and anger, shadowed by his own failures. Their energies clashed, filling the night with blinding light and deafening sound. Neither moved. Neither faltered. The world seemed to pause, holding its breath for the inevitable resolution. "You cannot win," he snarled, desperation creeping into his voice. "You're just a girl. A child of flame." Aria lifted her chin, every nerve on fire with certainty, every muscle coiled with unstoppable power. "I am not a child. I'm not yours. I am me. And this," she spread her hands, the silver flame erupting into a pillar of light that split the night sky, "is my world. My destiny. My choice." The ground cracked beneath them. Lightning arced, illuminating the two forces frozen in mortal opposition. Every living thing felt the pull of her power, the inevitability of her ascendance. Kaelan stood behind her, unwavering, a silent promise of loyalty and love, his presence fusing with hers in a bond forged through pain, trust and shared struggle. The clash was paused on the knife edge of fate. Neither yielding, neither broken, the silver flame and shadow locked in a breathtaking violent balance that promised nothing less than the rebirth of Moonspire Grove and the reshaping of destiny itself. And in that instant, the prophecy could no longer be whispered about in fear or distorted by envy. It had come alive. Aria Wynter, bearer of the silver flame, had claimed her power. She was no longer the hunted, no longer the betrayed, no longer a pawn in anyone else's game. She was the fire, the storm, the wolf and the flame, standing unbroken against the darkness. The night screamed around her. The wind carried her defiance to the farthest ridges. Every shadow, every elder, every enemy bore witness. She would no longer be sacrificed. She was her own master. And as Draven recoiled, stunned by the force of her awakening, the silver flame surged higher, lighting the sky, touching the stars and proclaiming to the world, loud and unyielding, that she had claimed her destiny. The air after battle hung heavy with smoke, ash and the faint, lingering scent of ozone. Moonspire Grove, though scarred, stood resilient, its ancient stones reflecting the remnants of Aria's silver flame. Every leaf, every root, every trembling branch seemed to pulse with the echo of what had transpired. The power she had claimed, the defiance she had wrought, and the bonds she had solidified. Aria Wynter stood at the center of it all. Her fur glimmered faintly in the dim light, still radiating the last tremors of the silver flame. Her breath came in deep, measured pulls, her chest heaving from exertion, from rage, from triumph, and yet beneath it all, a subtle trembling, a reminder that even those who wield storms carry fragile hearts. Kaelan remained beside her, silent and steadfast. His hand rested lightly on her shoulder, an anchor, a promise, a reassurance. She felt the warmth of him, steady and grounding, and yet even his presence could not erase the lingering doubt that had followed her since her earliest days. The fear that even power might not be enough, that even strength might not earn the acceptance she craved. The grove was quiet now, save for the whisper of the wind threading through scorched branches. And in that quiet, a question echoed, one that could not be answered by power or magic alone. Would you fear her? The wind seemed to whisper, carrying the voices of those who had judged, of those who had doubted, of those who had loved and lost, or stand beside her? Aria's silver eyes reflected the firelight of the scattered remnants of her power. She looked toward the horizon where Draven's shadow had vanished, where the first fragile stars appeared, and felt the weight of what she had done and what she had yet to face. Is she a savior? The shadows seemed to ask, or just a girl carrying too much fire? She did not answer. Not yet. Some questions were meant to linger, to draw the listener closer, to make the heart race with anticipation. Some truths were too vast to be spoken aloud in a single breath. Kaelan's gaze met hers, unspoken words passing between them. They had survived betrayal, they had faced fear and shadow, they had claimed power in a world that tried to deny them. And yet the night whispered still, the future uncertain, the world unquiet. And you, the listener, are left at the edge with them, hearts aligned with hers, trembling with the weight of possibility. Because this story, this tale of fire, wolf, and love, has not ended. Not yet. If this story set something burning inside you, if the pulse of danger, love, and unrestrained power stirred your heart, then do not turn away. Subscribe to Anne's Romance Collections, where we tell tales that never fade, where heroes rise from ashes, where love and fire collide, and where every story, like Aria's, lingers long after the last word. As here we do not just tell stories. We make you live them. Feel them. Carry them with you, trembling, aching, burning with possibility. And the fire inside you, like Aria's, refuses to be contained. The echoes of battle still lingered in Moonspire Grove. Scorched leaves crackled underfoot, and the heavy scent of ozone and burned earth hung in the air like a lingering curse. Shadows stretched long across the fractured ground, twisted by the dying light of the silver flame. Even the wind seemed reluctant to move, as though it feared disturbing the fragile calm that had descended after chaos. Draven Morkand had been driven back, defeated, humiliated at least for now. Yet his retreat did not bring peace. The grove itself quivered, responding to an invisible pulse beneath the soil. Roots writhed, stones shifted, and the very air seemed to hold its breath, vibrating with a warning that no one yet dared to name. Aria Wynter stood at the center, every muscle tense, every nerve alive with the aftershocks of power. Her fur still glimmered faintly with residual silver flame, her body thrumming with energy she had barely contained. Kaelan remained close, unwavering, but even he could feel it. A shift in the shadows, a presence that was not of this world, or at least not of this battle. From the treeline a shape rose. It moved slowly at first, indistinct in the gathering darkness, but unmistakably alive. Tall, impossibly powerful, it blended with the shadows yet radiated its own undeniable aura. The forest held its breath. Even the spirits of Moonspire Grove seemed to pause, waiting. Then a voice, soft, deliberate, chilling, slithered through the trees, carried by the wind, brushing against the ears of all who remained. Aria Wynter is not the only one touched by flame. The words curled around her like smoke, familiar yet alien, a whisper that promised both wonder and terror. Her eyes narrowed, silver flames flickering faintly as her body coiled, ready to react. The forest trembled again, this time in acknowledgement, shaking leaves from ancient boughs, rattling stones along hidden paths, as if the grove itself were warning her of a new, unseen threat. Kaelan's hand found hers instinctively, a grounding touch in a world that had become uncertain once more. "Whatever it is," he murmured, voice low, "we face it together." But Aria felt it, the stir of a larger force, ancient and predatory, watching from beyond the visible. The shadows of the grove seemed alive now, whispering secrets she could almost understand but could not fully grasp. Every instinct screamed that this was only the beginning, that the fire she carried would not be tested by Draven alone, that the prophecy she had begun to fulfill was far from complete. And then another whisper, deeper, more commanding, a voice that rolled through the grove like distant thunder. "The true Alpha has yet to rise." The ground shuddered beneath her feet. Roots creaked. Stones split. The air rippled with the tension of an awakening power. Aria's silver flame pulsed in response, a heartbeat of fire against the unknown, echoing both fear and defiance. She felt it deep in her chest, a promise, a warning, a challenge. Kaelan's gaze swept across the treeline, alert, muscles coiled for a threat he could not yet see. But Aria stood her ground, every fiber of her being charged with a mixture of exhilaration and dread. This was the moment that would define the next chapter of their lives. The precipice between triumph and a challenge far greater than anything they had faced. The forest exhaled, wind rustling through leaves as though carrying 1,000 silent voices. The stars above blinked coldly, indifferent witnesses to the power that had been unleashed and to the promise of the forces still waiting in the dark. Aria turned her gaze to Kaelan, the fire of determination reflected in her eyes. They had survived betrayal, they had claimed power, they had faced shadows and death, but this was something else. Something vast. Something ancient. Something that could change everything. And in that silence, in the trembling grove, in the weight of the unseen, one truth became clear. Their journey had only just begun. The fire she bore would not fade. The shadows she had awakened would not rest. And the Alpha who truly ruled this world had yet to emerge. The camera of imagination lingers on them. Aria Wynter, silver flame pulsing beneath her fur, and Kaelan Voss, silent guardian, both poised at the edge of destiny, waiting for the storm that would come. The grove shivered one last time, a subtle tremor that ran through the very bones of the earth, as though whispering to the listener. This isn't over.